Today we're going to be talking about trauma attachments from our book Entity Removal. There is nothing that a child can experience that is more devastatingly traumatized within a soul as abandonment by a parent. And so that's our example that we'll use today to describe trauma attachments. Beth is an adult that had an abortion in her past, and she has not healed from the guilt of this. And Betty is a lost soul that abandoned her child also. Betty did not cross over to the spirit realms after death, and so she's in the astral realms, ready to respond through the law of attraction that creates the bridge in order for her to join with Beth in her mutual unhealed emotion of abandonment guilt. Now this emotion within Beth and the adjoining Betty exacerbates Beth's circumstance, and she gravitates to a man who has feelings of unworthy from being abandoned by his parents at birth. Ben's unworthy feelings cause him to have self-sabotaging behaviors like addiction, alcohol, drug addiction, and gambling, etc. None of these things are helpful in romance or friend relationships, as is discovered by Beth, who has a tendency to smother Ben with forgiveness and encouragement and loving behaviors to assuage her guilt. And Ben takes advantage of this, but it doesn't help Ben. He feels unworthy of Beth's adoration and love and forgiveness. And so both are unsatisfied with relationships, either friendships or romance, and they break up. And this dynamic between Beth and Ben is repeated with different players, different personalities, and the repetition of the dynamic finally weighs Beth down, and she realizes, I'm creating this scenario. And she seeks out psychological and or spiritual assistance. In this case, she seeks out the help of a medium because she feels the exacerbation of an entity attached to her. It is not a harmonious attachment, it's not a blind attachment. She feels someone's presence within her dreams, her memory, her body. And so the medium is able to help her uncover the abandonment guilt that is causing the emotions to draw her in these relationships with unworthy men. And she's also able to point out the attachment, Betty, that is exacerbating this circumstance and causing her soul discomfort and spiritual, mental and physical discomfort. So the medium helps her to release Betty from her aura and heal her soul fragments so that Beth will not be subject to any more further attachments. She counsels also Betty during the same process with Beth, and she helps her, Betty, to heal her unhealed emotion of guilt also, and to forgive herself. Both Betty and Beth are encouraged to achieve self-forgiveness and compassion for themselves. Ben, on the other hand, will probably need to seek out psychological assistance, professional help, in order to help him to identify his feelings of unworthiness and what is the root of this unworthiness, which is his birth abandonment. And so the overall healing for this circumstance and the people and the emotion is compassionate forgiveness. And thus healing is achieved. Thank you. So be it.